For generations, men and women of all ages have been made to laugh, sing and cry through the medium of film. From our earliest surviving film footage to iconic movie moments from every generation, people continue to be both shocked and thrilled by motion pictures. But when do movies go too far? At what point do viewers stop revelling over the thrill of the film and begin to revile it? Even the most iconic movies contain scenes deemed too outrageous for public viewing. To begin with, we must explore one of the first films ever made to initially insult and disgust audiences. With a running time of just 21 minutes, Louis Buñuel and Salvador Dali created the 1929 silent surrealist film Un Chien Andalou. Considered by some as the film which started it all, this piece of surrealist artwork was what originally broke all boundaries of filmmaking and kick-started the making of transgressive cinema. This dreamlike movie was made up of unexplained imagery with no apparent logic or story. Buñuel's aim while making this film was to shock and assault the intellectual bourgeoisie of his generation. Much to their disappointment, however, the film was a huge success, Dali later stating that the satisfied reaction from the audience made the evening less exciting. The scene that made the film famous, of course, was the cutting open of the female character's eye, shown less than 2 minutes into the movie. This film was the breakthrough Buñuel and Dali were aiming for, and was said that with one cut they sliced open the boundaries of filmmaking. From this point onward, we will examine one of the world's most famous thriller writers of all time. Alfred Hitchcock. Infamously known for his grueling movie genre, who worked from 1919 till the year he died in 1980, known in his profession as the master of suspense, Hitchcock managed to produce some of the world's most iconic movies still celebrated to this day. He reinvented the thriller genre and supplied it with romance and uncertainty. Some of the best-known films by Hitchcock include Vertigo, Rope, Mami and The Birds, all of which awarded him with great fame and notoriety due to their radical views and gory content, also not to mention multiple BAFTAs and Golden Globe Awards. But Hitchcock's most prominent and infamous reactions came from his 1960s Oscar-nominated film Psycho. Known as the horror movie that changed the genre, Hitchcock's masterpiece takes many unexpected turns, with its lead characters transgressing from villain to victim, causing them both sympathy and hatred amongst audiences. The unusually structured movie also opened the doors to allowing other directors new and creative ways to construct films. Psycho's most renowned moment, of course, was when 33-year-old actress Janet Leigh appeared nude in the famous shower scene. This sparked huge amounts of controversy and left much of its viewers disgusted. However, Psycho got an even more outraged reaction after being one of the first movies to show a flushing toilet.
Joe Egan and Jerry Rafferty were a duo known as Steeler's Wheel when they recorded this Dylan-esque pop bubble-gum favorite from April of 1974. That reached up to number 5 as K-Billy's Super Sounds of the 70s continues.
One
All over the world, there are limits on what is deemed acceptable in films. This varies from country to country. There are a number of popular movies which portray scenes that were considered not fit for public viewing, and some were temporarily banned from being screened in the UK, only to be shown after the removal of certain footage. However, these films are not uncommon. Over the years, audiences have grown accustomed to graphic movie content, which no longer have the power to shock. Therefore, artists have to innovate new ways to surprise their viewers by taking their movies a step further. In this next part, we will examine films that were seen to transgress the social norms and sensitivities of their day, in times when filmmaking had become a medium through which directors could challenge the emotions of their audiences and confronting their psychological resilience, leading to a broadening of the accepted views and values. In New York, 1985, Nick Zedd, a young filmmaker, launched an underground film movement called the Cinema of Transgression. This consisted of a few like-minded young artists who, like Zedd, wanted to create movies using what they called the shock factor. This organisation made a number of simple, low-budget movies, many of which display emotions of hatred, suffering and anger, as a deliberate and rebellious attempt to shock and humour their audience. To this day, this organisation is still influencing young filmmakers in the field of transgressive cinema. Many famous writers have taken it into their own hands to create their own pieces of work, featuring subjects considered by the public to be transgressive and controversial. Danish film director and screenwriter Lars von Trier, with a career spanning over nearly 4 decades, is responsible for creating some of our most prolific and controversial cinema of our time. His most famous works include The Antichrist, Melancholia, and his simple yet extremely powerful 2003 movie Dogville. Literally breaking down the boundaries, von Trier only allowed minimal props and stage settings, making his actors mime when opening doors and imagining the walls around him. Also, his 2013 movie Nymphomaniac, with frequent shots of real pornography, this story traces the life of the strong female lead in her constant hunt for satisfaction, and shows her desperate attempts to lead a fulfilled and happy life, with no success. In 1966, Ken Loach created a social realist film, one of the first of its kind to ever depict the harsh realities of the British working class. The story of Cathy Come Home tells of a young married couple struggling to make ends meet after being evicted from their home. In their desperate attempt to seek out safe refuge, the couple, along with their 3 young children, are turned out onto the streets. This film broaches issues such as unemployment and homelessness, which were not widely discussed at the time. The gritty documentary style of filming, along with the hard-hitting subject matter, was new to British television and caused such an impact to its audiences, many of which believed the film to be a real documentation of a poor British family. Actress Carol White, who stars in the film, reported that people would stop her in the street and attempt to give her money, believing her to be homeless. What caught the most attention was the heartbreaking moment when Cathy had her own children taken away from her.
It was undoubtedly one of the most successful pieces of social reforming drama we've had on television.
I think there's been enormous confusion in the public mind as to whether this is in fact or fiction.
I thought it was a brilliant piece of propaganda of a highly charged emotional kind.
This film was responsible for the increased awareness of homelessness in the UK, resulting in many different campaigns and charities. A statement read, "The film alerted the public, the media and the government to the scale of the housing crisis." This is just one of many films about dramatic social change which caused this kind of effect on its audiences. Other such works include Richard Attenborough's 1982 8 Oscar-winning epic, Gandhi.
It is time you left.
And the 2007 animated biography of Marjane Satrapi, a young woman living through the 1980 war in Iran.
No more crying. Europe is waiting.
These movies are not what you would typically consider as transgressive, but to be so means challenging the status quo and doing something out of the ordinary. They are transgressive because they show something unexpected, and they often address real problems present in society. English writer and director Mike Leigh made a name for himself with his unique style of directing, making movies from improvised film sequences to create a higher sense of reality.
You've had nature explained to you and you're bored with it. You've had the living body explained to you and you're bored with it. You've had the universe explained to you and you're bored with it.
Transgressive movies focus on the benign, the unexpected, but more than anything they focus on the truth. It can often be disturbing or uncomfortable to watch as it takes people away from the fantasy of the film and back into the sordid reality. It is no longer enough to shock audiences with explicit movie content. Now cinema causes unease to audiences in their real lives because it reminds them too much of real life. Surely this is true transgressive cinema.